Hey, I wanted to jump on real quick and tell you about a conversation that I had this morning with one of the girls at the gym, because I think it's so important that we make this distinction of something we discuss. And it started off of her talking to me about, she's at this point where she's ready to make some changes, and we were getting all of her information of where she's starting from and things like that, and just having that conversation of getting started, and so. And she mentioned something about weight loss, and I said, I went through telling her something I heard this weekend. So I was listening to a YouTube video, and if I can find the video, I'm going to post it below so that way you could see it too. I also want to give credit where credit's due, so I've got to go find that video. And but anyway, the speaker was talking about weight loss, and he said, from now on, to think of it not as weight loss, but releasing the weight. And he talked about that for a few minutes and how the difference between weight loss and a release. And the difference being when we lose something, when something is lost, that's sort of a negative, right? When something's lost, we gotta go find it. You lose your keys, we gotta find them. You lose your child, you've got to go find them, those kind of things. So he was talking about how in releasing something is more like open hands, giving it back to the world and giving it away, right? And letting it go. And I thought that was so beautiful, and not only just for weight loss, but for other things, right? Because I know a lot of you have been watching read my blog, or you watch my videos, and I've just sent a child off to college. So I'm in that period of feeling some loss. And I know that like inside my body, the feeling it's of loss, or and something's missing. And if you read my blog post from a couple weeks ago about the space between, I'm like, I've had even like panic dreams and things like that of wanting to go get it, right? So the thing is lost, and I'm wanting to find it and bring it back. And I'm like, but I love the idea of that with release and saying, okay, I didn't lose her, I released her to the world. And that goes like the visual in my mind switches from it being something that I lost, and there's just pain and there's this suffering and the loss and the holding on to hands open, releasing. Like I just see like a beautiful butterfly being released out into the world to go and be beautiful and do the things that she's supposed to do. And I think how often we do that with ourselves in our weight release journey, right? That we get to that point. There's no more critical spot for me with a client than when they've actually had some success. It's easy to keep them on track in the beginning. It's easy when it's all fresh and new. But and sometimes even for many people, it's that uptick, right? Going up. They don't have any trouble staying with it then. It's once they have some success and people start noticing and people start congratulating them and people say, wow, you really look great. And I used to think a lot of that had to do with that we just decided, okay, well, I've arrived, I can take my foot off the gas. But I don't think that's all that it is. I think that the temperature's starting to go up. And if we just have this thing inside of us that it's like we have that set point that we're comfortable with. We have this person we've been comfortable with, this place we've been comfortable with, this, even when it's painful to have the extra weight, even when it's physically painful, emotionally painful, it's still our plate. We know that pain. We know what to expect from it, and we're comfortable with it, if that makes any sense. Even in the discomfort, we're comfortable. And that becomes our set point, and that's where we are. And so we start to like succeed. I've recognized this, that I've done this in my business. And so like we'll succeed, and then all of a sudden you get hot. Whoo, it's hot in here. Why? Well, I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm out of it. Like I don't know anything around me. Everyone's congratulating me like I'm this thinner person, or I'm this fit person, and I don't know who that person is. And we haven't like worked on the inside stuff to change our identity and who we are along the way to make sure that when we arrive over here, we're ready to deal with the success. I think we think that will be easy and it'll just be automatic, that it's so much better and our lives will be better and it'll be easy to stay there, but it's not, and we all know it. Like, we all have been the person that's lost the weight and then gone back and found it. And then we bring it back. And so this time, here's what we do. We release it. It's gone. We release it. And in the process, you work with a coach. You work with someone who can walk the process with you and make sure that as you're going down that road, you are not seeking it back out. That you're not looking for that thing you lost. You're not looking for your old identity, and you're not going back to that person who was the person who had that old set point. You have leveled up, and you're gonna sit in the heat. You're gonna sit in that hot room and raise the temperature to where you are instead of you going back down to where it feels comfortable and cool for you. I hope that makes some sense. And you know what I love too is we finished the conversation and talking so much about language and things like that. And she said, yeah, I just gotta get it under control. And I thought, there it is again. Like, how quick do we do it, right? And I'm like, let me ask you something. And I'm asking you, if you're listening to my video right now, I'm asking you, if I say to you that anything is like it's gonna control you, how does that feel? No one likes that. Like, I have to be so careful with setting up plans with clients, because a lot of us, so many of us, like, the minute you tell me what to do, I am not doing that. There's so many of us. And it's funny because people will come in and say, hey, Jen, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I'm like, no, you've got to come up with a plan. It's got to be you. You've got to set your pace. You have to do this, right? Because it's not for somebody else to control what you're doing. You've got to learn to do this. But here's the thing with the control thing. I'm like, nobody likes to be controlled, even when it's from ourselves. And so I'm like, you know what? Our bodies, they're not something to be controlled. Our bodies are not a thing or a program or a mechanism to be controlled. It is a body that we get to live in, and it is to be nurtured and loved and cared for. And that is when that becomes a thing, like, okay, I have to latch on. I've got to mentally make a note to self, and I've got to work on that note daily, and I've got to write it down daily, that I'm going to say, okay, this is what this looks like when I get here. And when a heat comes and the room temperature starts going up, I know I'm not going back to that set point. I'm not going back. I'm not going to look for the thing that's lost. And I'm not going to control this. I'm going to love myself through it. It's not something to be controlled and conquered, right? They're bodies. And we talked for a couple minutes about the article I saw about the 103-year-old lady who's like running at 103. She's running and winning races, and it's so cool. And I'm thinking, like, how do I get there? If I get to 103 and I get to 103 with this body, how grateful am I for that? How grateful? Could I be that grateful for it today and treat it as if I'm so grateful for this body that's going to carry me to 103 years old? Can you imagine? So do it, you know, like some gratitude for your body, some nurturing and caring and putting it first because it matters, not because you have to. And it's not trying to twist and control and beat it into submission and get it to do what you want it to do by starving it. It's by feeding it nurturing foods that make it feel good and not overfilling my digestive system, because then when I do, I don't feel good and it doesn't pay me back. And all those things, like a million things. I could go on with this forever and I'm not going to. I just want you to start thinking about what is something in your language about you that you know needs to change. Like, have you used that weight loss? How does that hit you about saying, okay, it's actually like more like a release? Is that different? Could that help? And then also, I'd love to know too, like, how does that feel about the control part? Because I know that one hits so many of us. When I was a new coach, that was hard for me to coach through because I actually didn't fully understand it yet myself. And so years later, I've watched it, you know, and you know what I've watched? I've watched self-sabotage for so many years, and I've watched us just have to bring us back to that set point. I don't want that for you. And so I'd love to know how these things are hitting you. And let me know below. I'd love to hear if this was helpful in any way to you. Have a wonderful day.